Greetings viewers and welcome back. In this video I'm going to do some advanced basing techniques, primarily circling around the realistic water that I've showed you previously. I'm actually going to break this video down into two parts, and once I'm finished with what I'm going to show you, I'll make another video and I'm going to have my friend Matt that you've seen playing against me with his Space Marines. He's going to go ahead and show you the way that he does his bases with static grass and some rocky terrain. I don't want to take too much away from him, so I'm going to let him explain all that. I'm just going to get this base kind of set up, and then I'll again turn it over to him and let him do his thing. So first of all, if you're thinking about putting some kind of watery terrain, or maybe like a swamp or a river or a beach or whatever your theme is for your army, and you're wanting to use this product, and maybe you're not certain how to use it or what to do properly, the instructions on it aren't exactly that great as far as what you can and can't do with it and what's going to kind of mess you up using it. Basically, if you're going to use this stuff, it's probably going to be one of the last steps that you put on your bases once you're done with your models. You don't want to be putting it halfway on. Obviously, you're not really going to want to paint over it because that kind of takes away the purpose for putting it on there. So that's going to end up getting used last, but we have to set up our base first of all. I'm going to go from start to finish here using just a plain black base, so this hasn't even been primed yet. And just imagine, if you will, that your model is on here. So you're not going to want to do all these steps without a model on your base, because it makes it really hard to stick the model to it afterwards, unless you do some other advanced things that kind of cause a little bit more work than you need to if you can go ahead and do it all in one step. So essentially, as I'm using this plain old base, just imagine that I have some sort of a model stuck to it. So when it goes from starting all the way from priming and gluing stuff down, you're going to want to do that all in one trip here. So the first thing I'm going to do, again, pretend my model's here. I need to get some terrain glued down here. I got this basing sand that I showed you a long time ago that came in a little starter kit. I haven't really used that much of it. We're going to put down a layer of that first before we actually prime it. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is just take my little handy craft glue here, and I'm going to just kind of glob it all over the base and then just spread it around to the areas where I want sand, and then just dunk it in the sand. Very easy to do. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to stop about halfway on this triangle here. I'm just going to put dirt on this side, and then I'm going to leave this space over here for the water effects, just so you can again get a good view of what it's going to look like, or what it can do to your bases. So I'm just squirting it all over there, everywhere I want it on my base, and then I just kind of start spreading the glue around. You want to make sure you get nice coverage. You don't want to go too far over the edge, but if you do, it's not a worry. Once this stuff dries, if you have sand stuck on the edge of it, it doesn't matter. You can just rub it off with your fingers. It'll come off. Probably put a little bit more on here than I wanted. Doesn't really matter. And since most riverbeds aren't flush anyway, maybe we'll just put a little bit of wavy action in here. And so again, just remember, there should be a model on this base even while you're doing this step. So probably not going to be as easy to access every area you want to put the sand. I'm going to have legs and parts of the model in the way. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. You should be able to get around them pretty easily, especially if you're doing something on this large of a base. A lot of your smaller troop size models, most of the armies, you got quite a few models. So like my army of Gaunts, I probably am not going to get this fancy and put water effects on all their bases. So usually you'd reserve this for kind of some of the bigger models, maybe Terminator size bases and up. All right, and then what I'm going to do now is I just have a coffee filter here to help me catch my sand, drop my base in here. And all I'm going to do to apply this basing material and this sand is I'm just going to dump it all over it. That's again why I'm using the coffee filter to catch it. Most people would just kind of pick the thing up and shake it and take it out. I'm going to actually leave it just like this until the glue dries. So I'm going to have to let this sit for a couple hours just to make sure that the glue grabs and holds on to everything that it needs to. And then once I'm done, I'll pluck it out, and then I'm going to actually prime over that dirt. So we're going to let this glue go ahead and dry, and when I come back, we'll get on to the next step. So as you can see, the base has dried. The sand is nice and tough on there. I knocked off all the excess, so I shouldn't have any worries about stuff coming loose and falling off. Again, the next step is going to be to prime this. Keep in mind that the model is going to be attached on this base, so this sand is going to get primed over. Now, the reason you want to do that, especially when you're planning on using this stuff here, the realistic water, if you look at the individual grains of sand, there's like a bunch of gaps in between everything. There's a lot of spaces. So when you put this on here, it's going to have a tendency to try and flow and fill into those cracks. So if I were to leave it just like this and pour some of that realistic water on here, it would start start to make its way in here. It takes a little while to do it, and by the time it's dried, it's too late. Now all you have is a bunch of water in the sand here. Now, that can be useful if, let's say, you're trying to make it look like they're on a beach or something and you want to use some beach sand and you do that. That's fine, because what it'll do is it'll be nice and thick over here, and then it's going to kind of work its way into the sand, so maybe it looks like it has that kind of tide coming in and out. You probably will need to put a little bit more over here though, because everything you pile up here is going to kind of have a tendency again to soak this way, so it may take you 2 different coats. This stuff is designed so that if you have a layer that's dry on there and you put some more on top of it, it's going to do whatever it does with its chemical formula there, and it's actually going to bond to it, so it's going to become one continuous piece, as though you had done it one time instead of putting 2 layers on it. So it won't make it look really weird or anything. But again, the next step, what I'm going to do is prime this, and that's going to seal up kind of all those little cracks and crevices for this stuff to run into. So this is going to just be one big solid mass. Now, if you want the texture for this and you don't want to go through the hassle of painting it and you want it to look like fresh dirt, you can always do that too, and then just wait till the end and put more dirt back on top of it and just do kind of a real watered down layer of glue and then have that stuck on there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this primed, and when I come back we'll go ahead and get it painted and ready to put the realistic water on here. Alright, so we're back. The base has been primed. The first color I'm going to go ahead and put on here, you guys should be familiar with. It's the Folk Art Teddy Bear Tan that I use for my Tyranids base color. So I've already got a little bit of that in my palette here. I've got it watered down, and all I'm going to do is just go ahead and slather it over this whole thing. It gets a little bit difficult kind of painting in between some of the grains, so you want your paint to be a little bit more watery than thick, just because it make it easier to kind of flow in there and make sure you get everything. And just kind of run your brush around and make sure you get it all. In this instance, I'm just going to cover the whole base, including all the edges. Alright, so as you can see, the whole base is now covered. Once this dries, I'll probably put a little bit of extra maybe on the area where the water is going to end up going, just because you can see it's kind of thin, so there's some brush strokes you can see through to the white, so I'll just want to even that out. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and let this whole thing dry. I'll probably put that extra coat on there before we come back. Before we move on to actually putting the realistic water on there, which will be the next major step, and obviously the focus and point of this particular video, not how to dry brush. You have a couple different options for putting the water on here. One of the things that you can do if you don't want to have to tint the water, maybe you don't have any food coloring or ways to do it, you can actually paint this. So let's say if you wanted it green or for whatever reason, or so maybe like a sea green, or you want a dark blue for your watercolor, you can actually go in the areas where you're going to put your water. I would go ahead and take my brush and just line it out and just paint this whole area that blue color, because when this stuff comes out and it dries, it's clear. So whatever, again, you put it over, you're going to see through it. Now, natural water is clear, so if it's coming up onto the sand and the shore or whatever, for a little terrain piece here, it would be clear and you'd be able to see through it just fine. Now, again, adding that blue on there is going to kind of give it that extra color when you look down on it. And as I mentioned, food coloring, which is typically the way I use the realistic water on my Tyranid bases, because I want it to look like kind of a toxic goo or slime. I create like a brown color out of the food coloring. Conveniently enough, there's a recipe on the back for different colors you can mix and come up with that aren't in the generic 4 colors that come with it. So the other option, again, you can use some food coloring. I typically use the little plastic medicine cups like you get on top of bottles of cough syrup, and I'll pour this in there and then put a drop or 2 of food coloring in there, and when you pour it on here and it dries, it's going to come out that nice blue color. So that could also work for some ice. If you get a real light blue out of it, and you have a snow theme, you can actually make ice on your bases, or again, just use it as the clear. And if you have the colors underneath, kind of your whites and real light blues, it should look really good and give the appearance of ice rather than just water. So it definitely does have a couple of different uses. So probably I may just skip the dry brushing portion of this. Again, that's not the focus of this tutorial, and I'm going to go ahead and get my little medicine cup filled up with some realistic water, and I'm going to go ahead and start applying it to my base. Alright, so before we get started putting the realistic water on there, again, I've got my little medicine cup, I've got my toothpick for stirring in the food coloring and also applying it to the base. And then what I have here is I have my food coloring that I use. It's just Target brand, Market Pantry. Again, it's just got the 4 basic colors, blue, green, yellow, and red. And then as I mentioned on the back here, it's got a little kind of like a recipe card for different colors that you can use. The second one down there, the chocolate malt, that's the one I actually use for my Tyranids. As you can see on there, you've got different colors like purple and lime green or seafoam green. Again, that may be a good color you're looking for if you want to do like a beach or a sea type theme, if you want the water to be like kind of a greenish color. So, or again, lime green would make some great toxic slime. So again, different variations. I'm sure there's different brands of food coloring out there. Maybe there's more variety of basic colors in the bottle, and then again, different recipes on the back for different colors. All I'm going to do in this one is I'm just going to use a little bit of blue. Nothing too fancy, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what it's going to look like, because you can pretty well guess what clear is going to look like. So if you can see it in the blue color, you'll be able to tell what it would look like in the clear. So all I'm going to do is I've got my realistic water open, pour it into my medicine cup. That's way more than I'm going to need, but again, the food coloring, it's very potent when it tints stuff, so you're going to end up probably wasting a little bit doing this much just for a demonstration. Again, if you're going to catch all your models up in your army to the same point, then mixing a big batch at one time is obviously a lot better idea than trying to do a bunch of smaller batches. So to start, all I'm going to do is just drop one drop of food coloring in there. You can see it doesn't really spread very well on its own, so again, that's why I have my toothpick. Get in there, stir it around, just get the water a nice blue color. And because it's that kind of like a whitish color to begin with, you can kind of really tell when it's starting to get mixed in or not. Alright, so once you've got it nice and mixed again, so you can see how kind of thick that color looks, and that was just 1 drop of food coloring. So obviously if I used just enough to put on the base and put 1 drop of food coloring in there, the blue would kind of be a little bit overpowering. So again, definitely do your models in batches. I usually wait till I have a lot of Tyranids ready to go, and then I kind of take up the whole dining room table, getting them all spaced out and spread out to put the slime on their bases. So all I'm going to do to apply it to my base, again, something I should point out, you definitely want to make sure you're working on a level surface. My desk kind of tilts a little bit backwards, so the liquid's going to have a tendency to try and flow towards the sand. Definitely want to take a level, maybe put it on your desk or somewhere and figure out what you need to do to jack it up or push it one way or the other, just so that it's not going to be flowing the wrong way. Because again, if I were to pour it straight on there and let it sit, it would have a tendency to flow this way and again start creeping into that sand. That may be an effect you're looking for, but in this particular case, I want to kind of keep it contained a little bit. So all I'm going to do is put a little bit of paper towel underneath the back here to kind of help level it out. Nothing too drastic, but again, I don't want my water to start flowing everywhere. So to apply it to my base, all I need to do, again, just make sure it stays nice and mixed. The color shouldn't be too bad. This is kind of a tedious process and takes a little bit of time, so you might want to be comfortable wherever you are applying this. And then usually I'll just lift it out with the toothpick and start putting it on there. You can go ahead and start pouring it, but again, if it gets a little bit out of hand, it starts to spill everywhere, it's going to create quite a mess. So you can use the toothpick to kind of guide it where you want it to go. That way I can push it just enough up to the edge of the sand without going over. Because again, pouring it, it's going to kind of go wherever it feels like. Another thing I should mention about this stuff, it is self-leveling. Again, in its chemical properties, whatever the heck this stuff is actually made out of. So that kind of causes that issue where, again, I said it's going to run to whatever area, and if I were to pour a bunch of it here and it started leaking that way into the loose sand, it ends up becoming one thin layer across the whole surface. Now, it does do a pretty good job as well on the edges of the base, and again, I think it has something to do with that part of its chemical makeup, where it doesn't really want to run over the edge here. So towards the front of the camera, you can see I'm going right up, pushing it to the edge, and it's not starting to leak over. It just tries to do whatever it can to stay together and level itself out. Now it does look a lot different here. You can see it's a very dark blue in the cup because it's all concentrated and has nothing behind it but the blue. and on the base it has kind of like a sea green color just because you're seeing that brown from the base underneath it. So maybe another good reason to paint your base where the water's going to go, whatever color it is you're wanting to have your water appear to be. So if I had painted the bottom of the base blue before doing this, it would be a lot darker and look more like what's in the medicine cup. So now that I've kind of poured it all over and made sure to drag it, I usually put a little bit of extra just because it is going to evaporate somewhat. There is a little bit of water in this mixture somewhere, so that's going to cause it to evaporate. It will shrink just a little bit, so I just want to make sure I have it all over the areas that I want it. And then all you have to do now is just let it sit. So once this dries, we'll come back and take a look at it. Hopefully it won't creep towards the sand too much, if at all, on me. We'll take a look at it, see if maybe we need to put a little bit more touch up on the edges here. I don't want to pick it up because I'm going to mess it up. You should be able to see that it looks a little thin towards the edges there. Again, it's kind of pulling itself together, trying that keep itself level, so it's not going to flow over the edges. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and let this dry, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at it and see what we've got. Alright, so we're back and the realistic water has dried. The bottle does recommend that you wait 24 hours or until it dries clear. I haven't touched it yet because I don't want to start pressing on it and putting fingerprint impressions in it or anything, but typically you wait 24 hours. But as far as we're concerned, just to show you the progress and what the final product's going to look like, it's not moving around. It's pretty well set in place. And again, painting all the sand beforehand, you can see where it stopped nicely right before the edge there, because again, if I had just used the plain sand, it would have leaked all in there. I probably should have done a second base just to show you what that would look like, since I had plenty of the realistic water left over. So as you can see, it works very well. It looks pretty good. Again, it does kind of mix with the color underneath. This isn't quite a yellow, but it's a yellowish brown, and we know that yellow and blue make green, so you can tell it's kind of more turquoise color than it should have been compared to what was in the medicine cup. If we had painted the bottom here blue, it obviously would show up blue a little bit better. So just something you can keep in mind when you're doing your bases if you try out this product on your stuff. So all I'm going to do from here is I'm going to end this video, and then I'm going to pick up the next video with Matt. He's going to have this base in his possession, and he's going to go ahead and do his thing with it. I really like the way he does his bases, so that's why I'm asking him to help me out. He has willingly agreed, and you guys will be seeing him in the next video taking care of the remainder of this base. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for all the positive feedback, comments, questions. If there's anything that you guys would like to see, please let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.